Welcome, everyone, to episode 3 of the Wild Wild West End podcast. I'm your host, Greg Hall. Today, I'll be talking about water snakes of Galveston County. Now, this is going to cover the harmless Nerodia. That Nerodia is the genus of water that all harmless North American water snakes belong to. Now, there are some similar things between all these snakes that I'll cover right here at the beginning. So you can see right along the mouth of this snake, there are what we refer to as labial bars, those vertical bars going up and down right there where those scales join together right at the mouth. So those are a common thread among all Nerodia and a good field mark for them. Another one are their keeled scales. Now, to anyone that doesn't know what a keeled scale versus a smooth scale is, if you look really close at the scales on this snake's neck, you can see that there is a raised line right through the center of every scale. Those are keeled scales. Lacking that ridge, they would be referred to as smooth scales. So that is a couple of things that are common to all Nerodia. Another one is their diet. All Nerodia are going to consume a large amount of fish and other things like tadpoles. Some are real specialists when it comes to fish. Others are not and will also eat frogs and other amphibians. And some of them even other things. But that's kind of enough to get into this. Again, genus Nerodia is the genus that all harmless North American non-venomous water snakes belong to. Could you see other snakes in the water? Absolutely. All snakes are excellent swimmers and will at some point or another go into the water, if not to hunt, to cool off, to move from place to place. Just because a snake's in the water doesn't mean it's a Nerodia, and it also doesn't mean it's a cottonmouth, contrary to popular belief. So, the first snake we're going to talk about is actually the one pictured on the title screen. It is Nerodia fasciata confluens, the broad-banded water snake. Now, the binominal is Nerodia fasciata, which is the banded water snake. Confluens is the subspecies that is common to our area. This is not a typically colored broad-banded water snake, but it's fairly representative of what they look like overall. Most have a much more of that really burnt orange in the face that you see there, and sometimes even bright, Confluens actually means fire. So that is what they were named after, for their bright oranges and reds that are sometimes present in their coloration. So this one actually is not from Galveston County. This one was actually caught off Ghost Road in Saratoga, Texas. These guys' habitat is going to tend more towards woodlands and, sort of wooded ditches, creeks, ponds. They are not really a prairie snake at all. You're not going to find them so much in neighborhoods, though it is possible in rural areas. They tend to like these kind of swampy, grass-filled, wooded, slow-moving waterways. They're kind of a medium-sized Nerodia. You're going to see them commonly from 2 to 3.5 feet. But, they can get fairly large. I've seen them over 4 feet, but never one at 5 feet. So is that possible? Sure, I guess it is. Genetics plays a role in that. As you can see here, this snake had kind of a bad attitude, which is another common thread among Nerodia, is that they do tend to be biters. Their bites are harmless. They do have an anticoagulant in their saliva that will cause you to bleed a little bit from those bites, but they're harmless bites. There's barely any pain, and they're just a few pinpricks. This is the ventral side of a broad-banded water snake. As you can see, it's quite beautiful. Anyway, that's what they look like from underneath. You're usually not trying to identify snakes from the ventral pattern unless they're dead, so that's not really useful. But you still can see those vertical labial bars on the face of this snake right here, identifying it as an Nerodia, or at least a non-venomous snake. This is a juvenile of the species. And by the way, these last couple of photographs were by my friend Heath Allred. So this is a Galveston County snake, and so is that last one. And yeah, the last two were Galveston County snakes. So this is a little more representative of what they're going to look like. This is a juvenile. They're going to be more brightly colored in most cases. This one was probably just born, weeks before this photo was taken. This was off in Dickinson, Texas. So, all right, another common thread among Nerodia, which broad-banded water snakes are particularly good at, is musking. They can all release a foul odor from glands located, in their cloaca, and it can range from just a overall bad smell to a skunky smell. They're one of many genus of snakes that are very good at musking, which is a defensive behavior. I'm sure that tastes really bad in addition to smelling bad. So anything trying to eat one of these guys, it's going to quickly spit it out probably, unless it's just immune to that, for lack of a better term, stank. Next snake in my lineup is the Mississippi green water snake, also known as the Western green water snake. It has a close relative, the Eastern green water snake, also known as the Florida green water snake. This is Nerodia cyclopeon. This one would technically be cyclopeon cyclopeon. So, and the Florida would be Nerodia cyclopeon floridana. So there is one, okay, other than their overall appearance of just being a green water snake with labial bars and a diffused kind of white yellowish pattern, as you can see there. These snakes have a diagnostic feature that you can see in this photo. Between the eye and those between the eye and the labial scales there, you can see that there's a tiny scale between there, and that is called the subocular scale. And these are the only Nerodia that have a subocular scale. That is actually where the term cyclopeon comes into their binominal name. So that first snake was actually one that was photographed in Anahuac. This one here was photographed in Galveston County. They're identical snakes. There's not any locality variation between those two. Again, they're not the Western green water snake, in any case, the Mississippi green, is not a very large snake. I seldom have seen one up to 3 feet. Usually they're going to be, 2.5 foot or smaller. The Florida green water snake, on the other hand, is quite different and can be up to 6 feet, I believe, and maybe even a little bit more than that. These guys are real fish specialists. They mostly are going to eat fish. I've actually never had one eat a frog for me. I've kept them for a while now. The juveniles are going to look really similar to the adults, just maybe a little better coloration. They're not, unfortunately, don't have a photograph of a juvenile. So this is a photo of me taking a photo of a green water snake. That photo is by Ricky Lee Treadway. Thanks, Ricky. Next is one of our really common water snakes in the county. This is the plain-bellied water snake. Now, the plain-bellied water snake, Nerodia erythrogaster, there was a lot of taxonomic lumping in a few years ago, and it combined the copper-bellied, the red-bellied, the yellow-bellied, the blotched, and the plain-bellied all into one snake, the plain-bellied water snake, because they are, as far as DNA goes, they're nearly identical. The ones here in our area have a cream-colored or yellow belly, but other localities, outside of Texas and different places around Texas may have, a little bit different of a ventral coloration. They have a plain belly with no markings. Unfortunately, don't have a photo of that to show you, but this particular photo is by Heath Allred. That's me holding the snake. This was a particularly beautiful one. More commonly, these guys are going to look like this as adults. They're going to be a dark colored snake that is commonly mistaken for a cottonmouth. They've got those obvious keeled scales, which they unfortunately share with pit vipers. You can see clearly, though, the labial bars on this snake. Also, the fact that you can just so clearly see those eyes from above like this is another indicator that it is a colubrid, a non-venomous snake. So they look quite a bit different as juveniles. This one here is actually a subadult that I own. I still have this snake to this day, and he still looks very much like this, even at about 4 years of age. This is the juvenile coloration, or at least close to the juvenile coloration. They're much more brightly colored and patterned as juveniles. This is a photo from Dickinson of a juvenile plain-bellied water snake, just in the water with just his head above the water, taking a look around. Again, you can see those labial bars very clearly. This snake is very ubiquitous on where its habitat is. They'll live in a ditch, a drainage ditch, a pond, a river, puddles. You can find them sometimes not really that close to water. They also, they'll eat frogs, they'll eat fish, they'll eat tadpoles, and probably other things that we really haven't observed. Probably dragonfly larvae, different types of larvae in the water, salamanders. So in general, these snakes are fairly small. 3 to 4 foot is about as big as you'll see them. However, I caught this one on Ghost Road in Saratoga. It was 54.5 inches. That half of that lovely lady in the background you see there is Aaron Swanson holding one that was about 50 inches. These were the two largest plain-bellied water snakes any of the three of us that were there had ever seen. Photo by Romy Swanson. It was just amazing how large these two plain-bellied water snakes were. I mean, they were real giants, and their musk was absolutely horrendous. So anyway, so as far as I've been able to determine, 55 inches is the record-sized plain-bellied water snake. So we were like a ½ inch off. In retrospect, I think we could have probably stretched that snake out another ½ an inch to at least tie the record, but we didn't at the time. So the plain-bellied water snake is again very common in Galveston County and throughout most of Texas. So this is probably our largest, despite the snake I just showed you in the last slide. This is probably on the whole our largest water snake in the county. This is the diamondback water snake. You can also, in this photo, common thread here, you can see clearly those labial bars, those bars right there on the face, identifying it. Also, you can clearly see those keeled scales in this photo. And rhombifer is a name that I guess it means rhombus, which refers to that rhombus pattern that they have. It's kind of a clear chain link pattern. These guys are all similar in coloration for the most part, but you're going to see some different eye colors among them. Most common eye colors I've seen are red and orange. This one has really a brown eye though. So this is, as I said, this is quite a large snake. This is another photo by Romy Swanson taken in Palo Pinto County along the Brazos. This is a very large one that we found. You really can't tell how large this snake is in the photo. She's actually 42 inches at the time. I actually still own this snake. She's 48 inches now, and quite heavy. Can put a decent bite on you. It's nothing that's threatening in any way, but she'll make you bleed a little bit. So these guys are. I've heard credible reports of them eating small waterfowl, like, ducklings, things like that. I've never actually witnessed that. So disclaimer, I can't prove that out to you today, but, I've heard of it happening and I kind of believe it. Basically, mine eats rodents with no scenting or any kind of anything. But in general, these guys eat really large fish. They seem to like catfish, but they'll also eat frogs, even large frogs like bullfrogs that some other Nerodia aren't going to be able to get down at their adult size. This snake excels at swallowing large prey. This is what a juvenile looks like, very similar to the adult, a little bit more brightly colored. Anyway, though, that in a nutshell is the diamondback water snake. So next is actually my favorite county specialty. Oh, wait, one more picture of the diamondback water snake. That's a really good picture of that chain link pattern they have. And, that olive color with those black markings and those labial bars, they're kind of unmistakable, especially the really large ones. So, okay, this is the one I've just referred to, kind of our specialty in the area. Really unique snake, the Gulf salt marsh snake, Nerodia clarki. It's got some close relatives. There's Taeniata, which is the Atlantic, and there's Compressicata, which is the mangrove. So but this one is clarki, the Gulf salt marsh snake. Um, they do look a bit like garter snakes and ribbon snakes, but they're going to be a little heavier bodied, and they're also going to have those keeled scales. So this one is actually in the water. This is the best place to find. They're a really aquatic snake, and I don't think I mentioned on the green water snake, they're also really aquatic. They're found mostly in the water. These other Nerodia will be found outside the water fairly often. So the best place to find this snake is clear water mud flats that have about, you know, an inch or two of water on them, where there will sun in that shallow water on bright days. So the unique thing about this snake is it's the only North American water snake that is adapted specifically to live in brackish and saltwater marshes. You can actually find these guys, you know, along the beach on the open ocean some days, but for the most part, you find them on the bay side of Galveston Island Gulf and along the Gulf Coast in those, you know, salt meadow cordgrass. They're rarely seen because of the environment they live in. They're actually fairly common, but anybody that's ever waded through, you know, mosquito-filled, muddy salt marsh hell knows that the environment these guys live in is not conducive to being searched. So I'm going to give you a little bit better of a look at this same snake. This picture was taken the same day. That shows you his striping a little bit better, those keeled scales. Their labial bars have a little different look to them. It's hard to see in this photo, but you can see it a little bit. So this individual actually has a better look at it, which we kind of like to call the skeleton grin, because they have that darkness in their labial bars. This individual is actually from Anahuac. This individual is from Galveston Island State Park, and you can really see that skeleton grin on her. Interesting thing, another, you know, these guys are also really fish specialists, but they'll also eat shrimp. I've heard they'll eat, by, you know, credible sources such as herpetologists, that they'll eat small crabs, probably all manner of small, fresh, you know, brackish water creatures that, you know, they could overpower and consume. None of the Nerodia are constrictors, so they just kind of grab things and swallow them alive. Now, this next snake is quite interesting. This snake was not found in Galveston County, but I would imagine that the same thing goes on in Galveston County. This is a snake from Anahuac, and this snake had the ventral pattern of the confluens of the broad-banded water snake, and that is because that they commonly integrate. The two species will breed and have young, and those young are a mix of those two snakes. So it's tough to see that ventral pattern. You really can't see. I mean, too bad I don't have a photo of that, but this snake was in fact an integrate. Here's another photo of that snake. As you can see, it's got that different pattern, but there's also pure salt marsh snakes that carry that pattern. It's the ventral pattern that was more important on this snake. So anyway, this is my favorite water snake. Of all of the water snakes in the county, this one is going to be the least likely to musk or bite. I have very rarely had a salt marsh snake attempt to bite me during a capture, or one that I kept captively. They are very docile, good-natured snakes for the most part. Easy to keep in captivity. Something else that is very strange about these snakes is the environment they live in should not be one where they commonly find frogs in a salt marsh. You know, frogs don't generally live in salt marshes, but these snakes absolutely love to eat small frogs. Not necessarily toads, but like green tree frogs, southern leopard frogs, even like small bullfrogs. These guys go nuts over them and love them. And I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's because they don't get them very much, that they just enjoy them while they can. So that is it on the different species of Nerodia that you can find in the county. These are all very harmless, interesting snakes that I kind of grew up catching all of these snakes, and really love to do that to this day with my son. So keeping in that thread, this book, North American Water Snakes, A Natural History, is an excellent field guide and natural history teaching tool for people who want to learn about Nerodia. I call this book the Nerodia Bible. J. Whitfield Gibbons and Michael E. Dorcas did an absolutely fabulous job combining a wealth of information about Nerodia into this book. It has subspecies that don't, so it's actually a little dated. This is a pre-lumping of water snake taxonomy, so you still get to look at all that wonderful diversity among the locality variations in these water snakes. The taxonomy is just a little bit off, but anybody that is up to date on their taxonomy is not going to have a problem with this book. They're going to easily be able to translate that. It's got wonderful photographs showing, unlike my presentation, it shows very good ventral and dorsal shots of all these snakes, close-up headshots of most of them. It describes these different species of water snakes in detail. It's well written. It's both an excellent field guide, as I mentioned, and natural history guide. I got that book as a gift from my good friend Romy Swanson, and what a nice gift it was for someone like me who really enjoys Nerodia. Not all herps people are fond of Nerodia. They're known as a, bitey, bad-natured, stinking snake that not a lot of people can appreciate. But I really like them, and I think they're super interesting snakes. So, staying with that theme, herping locations. Okay, so anyone that doesn't know what herping is, similar to birding, it's when we go out and intentionally find quote unquote herptiles. Herpetology is the study of reptiles and amphibians. It's when we go find those animals and photograph them, catch them, observe them for our own curiosity or for citizen science. Good herping location to find 3 or 4 of these species of water snakes is Bay Street Park in Texas City. Now, this park is supposed to be open from dawn to dusk, but they generally leave it open after dark. Even after dark, you can just kind of walk into the park from various places like Skyline Drive or straight from Bay Street. And I've never really been messed with for being in there. I don't think anybody really minds, especially if you're out there doing something wholesome like enjoying the nocturnal nature of the area. So that's a large American bullfrog that I caught there. This is another photo by Heath Allred. He was with me. He's a good friend of mine who also enjoys night herping with me sometimes. We haven't gone together in a while, but we need to again soon. So anyway, Bay Street Park, great place to see several species of frogs, several different species of Nerodia. There are cottonmouths there. I have seen photos of dead on the road hognose snakes in the road on Bay Street. I'm sure there are coach whips here and speckled king snakes. Just a couple of things I haven't found there that I'm sure are in this habitat. Anyway, Bay Street Park in Texas City, near the Texas City Dike, off Bay Street, is really a great herping location. So pay close attention to those lit up eyes on that frog. We're going to talk about that in the wildlife watching tips in a little bit here. First, though, I'm going to review some gear. Tony McDonald, he is a gentleman that runs a small business over here in Bay Cliff, Texas, near me. He spent some time working for a larger company, building all of these same types of things that he does now. You can go to, you can just search Stoney McDonald Animal Equipment. I think the name of his company is actual Animal Equipment by Stoney. You can search for that, find everything that he makes. He makes all kinds of equipment for zoos and small animal parks and just enthusiasts and scientists. What I want to talk about specifically here today, though, are his tongs. In the herpetology world, we use tongs to capture venomous snakes so that we can avoid being bitten by them, of course. And we also will use them to catch snakes at a distance that we maybe can't reach with just our hands, even if they're non-venomous. I really like the tongs that Stoney makes. Stoney doesn't know me personally. I don't know him. We probably both know of each other. I have no reason to endorse his tongs or any of his gear except that I really think it's a quality product. The tongs they're kind of soft plastic. I mean, they're hard enough that they get a good grip, but these are not metal tongs. They are easy on the animal. It's difficult to injure an animal with these tongs if you're practiced at all in using tongs. they have a rod construction down the middle of the aluminum shaft as opposed to a cable. Cables can snap, rust, corrode, freeze up, cause you to maybe not be able to release an animal that's thrashing and avoid injuring it. You'd never have that problem with the rod construction. These are durable. I've had mine for years. I prefer to carry the 48-inch pair in the field, but I actually own one pair of every size of his tongs. I have the 48-inch, the 42-inch, the 36, the 30, and the 24. So I bought a 30-inch pair of these for my son. He really loves them. He's only 6 years old, and he can use them with ease. This is a picture by Romy Swanson taken in the big thicket, of me gently hoisting a cottonmouth, for a quick photograph. These are great. These are a great piece of equipment. He also has really nice buckets, bags, capture nets, other types of things you should look into. But specifically, I really like his tongs, and I fully endorse them and recommend them to you if you're someone that needs or uses snake tongs. Even for simple relocations for snakes out of your yard, they work great. Mentioned my good friend Heath Allred a couple of times here as a herper, and I would like to spotlight his business right now. Heath is a breeder of English bulldogs, and as someone who I'm on the line about the ethics of dog breeding, I kind of think we should get dogs from shelters, but that's not for everybody. You're not going to find these pure breed dogs like some people want at a shelter necessarily all the time. Where you can find really beautiful purebred English bulldogs is at my friend Heath's business, Dollar Bay Bulldogs. He works a full-time blue collar job and does this out of a love for these animals. His husbandry with these animals is absolutely on point. There is no one I would trust more to buy a dog from than Heath. We've known each other for over 20 years. We grew up together. We met when we were teenagers, and he's a great guy. Really, really loves these dogs. The dogs at his home they have air-conditioned kennel. They get plenty of time to run around. They are all, most of them actually are family pets, but he does breed them and sell them. So you can look him up on Facebook at Dollar Bay Bulldogs, and I really recommend that you do that if you like English bulldogs. You can really see some beautiful ones that he's bred. Get on a waiting list maybe to buy one of his puppies. So anyway, again, Heath Allred, Dollar Bay Bulldogs, great guy, ethical breeder, loves these animals. The health care he gives them is amazing. So, if you're gonna buy from a breeder, I recommend Heath, or at least talking to Heath about, maybe another breeder in your area that you could buy from. He's really well connected in the bulldog community. So spotlight on Dollar Bay Bulldogs. Wildlife watching tips. So eye shine is a thing that's common among some reptiles and amphibians, many mammals, and it's a good way to locate things in the dark with a flashlight. As you can see, this American alligator's eye just lights up when that light hits it. That bullfrog in that other photo, also, its eyes would light up when that light hits it. So this is just a really good way to find things, specifically things swimming around out in the water, and get a look at them. You can, when you'll see this happen when your headlights hit, raccoons and things crossing the road at night. It is referred to as eye shine. Real experts on eye shine can differentiate animals' eye shine by color and the distance between the eyes. I'm not one of those experts. I can, however, usually tell you if it's a bullfrog or an alligator that I'm looking at. So anyway, eye shine is a really good way to locate animals in the dark, specifically when you're herping for bullfrogs or American alligators. Thanks to my good friend Heath for those photos that he provided. I think everyone should go outside and enjoy nature. Teach your kids to enjoy nature. Thanks for listening. I hope you learned at least a little bit about the Nerodia of Southeast Texas and Galveston County from this video. Please study my photos. Learn to tell the difference between these snakes and cottonmouths so you can educate other people. They are unfortunately maligned and killed because everyone that thinks that most of these water snakes are cottonmouths, and they're actually completely harmless fish and frog eating snakes Thanks, everybody. This has been the Wild Wild West End, episode 3 with Greg Hall. Everybody get outside and enjoy nature. Thanks for listening.